How's it going, everybody? This is the Nitty Gritty. My name is Chad. With me, as usual, is Leonard. And this is a show about wrestling. And we decided to stick with SummerSlam season just a little bit longer. And last year, we did some of our favorite SummerSlam events in total. This year, we thought we would go in a different direction and talk about some of the worst SummerSlam main events of all time. So, for those of you who haven't seen some of our favorite lists or worst lists before, Leonard and I kind of approach these in different ways.
Yeah.
And to make it a little bit more fun so that we're not always just picking the exact same matches, I try to go in a little bit of a different direction in that I'll pick some that maybe annoyed me for a specific reason or ones that kind of stick in my craw for whatever reason. So keep that in mind as we go forward. And you'll have to let us know what you think and what matches come to mind for you that are the worst. So we talked before we got on here, Leonard, about honorable mentions.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a couple that I looked at here that I was close to using, and I decided maybe not to ultimately. And, I'll mention it here because I do think it's worth mentioning, which is from SummerSlam 2020, The Fiend versus Braun Strowman in a Falls Count Anywhere match for the Universal Championship. And in context, this was very much a COVID era main event. There was no crowd. And the match, one of the reasons why I think the match doesn't work at all is although there was a inherent storyline with Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman being a part of the same faction at one time, this match was not very good. They did not have very good chemistry, and the Falls Count Anywhere aspect was not used very well at all. They, had Braun tear up the ring mat at the end to expose the wood planks beneath. But the match was only like 12 minutes, and it just wasn't very good. And you would see the Fiend win this match and become the Universal Champion. What's interesting about him winning here is that at the very next pay-per-view, Payback, you would see Roman Reigns win, returning as a heel, and he would win the Universal Championship, and he continues to hold it to this day. So that's how long ago we're talking about, with Reigns being on top. But Braun Strowman versus The Fiend, I was not a fan of overall. The crowd being absent is a big deal. But yeah, so that's my honorable mention. Leonard, I'll let you go first with your number 3.
Sure. No, real quick, I lied. I will throw an honorable mention at you. Do you know what the main event was of SummerSlam 91?
91. So is that when Warrior and Hogan teamed?
Yes. And the reason I asked you that is because when I was looking at the list, it's Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior versus Sergeant Slaughter, General Adnan, and Colonel Mustafa.
Right.
And I had zero memory of that.
That's funny. I had zero memory of it as well. And I thought about going back to rewatch it. You know what I remember about that match? I remember the poster. I remember the poster because it had Warrior in camo kind of get up.
Yes.
And he and Hogan together. And I remember the poster was striking, but the match itself, I have absolutely no recollection of.
Right. And I was going to take a look at that, and I wound up not doing that as well, but that was one I was interested in looking at.
Maybe it deserves to be honorable mention for that reason.
Yes, because it was completely forgettable. So with my list, I wound up going with not only what I felt were bad main events, but memorably bad main events. And I actually found 3 in a row, 3 straight years that are considered to be just the drizzling shits. And I'm going to talk about those in chronological order, so you'll figure out where I'm at very quickly. Because I'm going to start out with Lex Luger versus Yokozuna from 1993.
Yeah.
The best part of this to me was Randy Savage coming out as the MC for the main event with Aaron Neville waving an American flag. and then he sings the national anthem. And Bobby Heenan's commentary is great on this as well.
His outfit.
The outfit is great.
Savage's outfit is epic on another level.
Yes. So that's the best part of the match. So, to recap heading into this, Lex Luger turns face by body slamming Yokozuna on the 4th of July on a battleship, and then literally chases him to SummerSlam for a title shot because he's driving a bus, the Lex Express.
Right.
And I think why this is memorably bad is because it is completely 100% poised for Luger to win the title. And he doesn't. He wins the match by count out. There's balloons, there's confetti, there's fanfare. They act like Luger won the Super Bowl, the presidency, and was the first man to walk on the moon, all put together.
Yeah.
And he won by count out. He doesn't get the belt. Now, from what I've read and heard, it was because Vince McMahon thought the money was in the chase, and he wanted to extend that chase through WrestleMania.
To cut you off just for a second, I have heard that, but I've also heard that Vince was finally starting to see that Lex Luger might not be the answer to his prayers at this point.
Okay.
Maybe it was too early at this point. Or maybe it was closer to WrestleMania that he started to see that about Luger. But at some point, like, the Luger shine was starting to really wear off because he was, historically not the most well-liked person in the locker room and wasn't the easiest to work with and all that stuff. So, yeah. Whether or not that plays a factor in the timeline, I don't know, but it would be a factor at some point. So.
Sure, and the match itself is pretty bad considering who you had in there. I mean, it was a lot of basic strikes and moves. Luger didn't look bad, I thought. He had a nice drop out of a body slam early on. He had a nice elbow drop early on. He got some nice air on. He comes off the top rope a couple times, which is cool to see out of him. But as a main event, there's just not much meat on the bone here, unless you count all the bulk that Yoko was walking around with. It's nearly 18 minutes and way too long for that. I mean, it should have been like 10, even though I know it's the main event. But we're going to get to some other short main events as well coming up here. I think it would have been fine if you cut some of the filler, like all the stuff they did on the outside. There was a lot of dead space between moves. And the crowd was pretty dead for most of it as well. I mean, which you can really see, Luger has all these kickouts. He has all these kickouts and close 3 counts to no reaction, no reaction, which the crowd should be going nuts for, and they're not. So, that's a memorably bad main event, mostly for the outcome, which most people didn't think was in doubt and wound up being not what was expected.
Right, and this match will be on my list, and I'll savor some of my thoughts for when we get there. So my number 3 might come as a surprise to Leonard. I don't know, but in looking at the list of SummerSlam main events, like I saw the ones that Leonard is going to talk about, and Leonard's picks just before he even gets to them are all very, very good, and probably the definitive list.
Yes, good by meaning bad.
But there were one stuck out to me, and the more I thought about it, I was like, you know what? Damn it, I'm going to talk about this one, and that would be from SummerSlam 2005, Shawn Michaels versus Hulk Hogan.
Oh.
And here's why I'm going to pick it. Now, technically, was the match horrible? No. But this match could have been a match that we talk about in fondness to this day. Mm-hmm. Look at The Rock and Hogan at WrestleMania 18. People still talk about how great that match is. Nobody talks about this match in a positive light because this match has turned into a joke. And there's no other way to say it. I've not met anybody who says, yeah, that was a really great match, and I loved seeing 2 of my favorites in the ring together. Nobody says that because everybody looks at it in one way, and that is that Shawn Michaels oversold to make Hogan look like an idiot or whatever the reason. And that's just how this match's legacy is going to be etched down in the history books to me. And it kind of makes me angry, not because, like, I think Hogan deserved better. He was old here. Like, this was, north of even his comeback run. So, like, he didn't have a lot to offer. I understand that. Shawn Michaels still did have some to offer. But I think that they could have worked better together. I've never heard Hogan say a bad word about this. So maybe he doesn't have a problem with it. I don't know. But I just think that if you look at the way Shawn Michaels approached this match, I think it's very cartoonish. And very clearly, he's trying to send a message in some way, shape, or form. So I just think this match is just a shame that it wasn't treated with a little bit more seriousness. But maybe you disagree, Leonard.
Well, from what I've heard, it was supposed to be a 3-match series, and that became 1 match. And
right,
Hogan politicked behind the scenes, and Shawn just wasn't having it. And we've talked before, especially in our fever dreams, that a certain era of Shawn Michaels had a lot of stroke backstage and politic backstage, and would pull stunts, losing his smile and crap like that. And I think that's just Shawn Michaels can be a prissy bitch, and
right.
that's what he was here. I think, and that's not me defending Hogan either, because Hogan can certainly want what's good for him, brother, and don't care about nobody else.
Oh yeah, his politicking is legendary, and
so I think this was Shawn getting out politicked and not knowing what to do, and he was like, this was his retaliation, was the overselling. And it is funny now to look back on. Again, like you said, this could have potential. I think a 3-match series between the two of them, if they took it seriously and did it right, even at that point in their careers, could have been really epic and really cool. And it wasn't. And Shawn's overselling is just today, it's comical, and it's certainly not good. And that's how it's remembered. It's remembered for his joke selling. So if Shawn's goal was to be remembered on top of Hogan for this, then he got that out of it.
Yeah, and the whole 3-match series thing, I've heard that as well. And I mean, for maybe that was talked about, but like for him being Shawn Michaels to think that this was actually going to be a 3-match series, to me is like at Hogan's age at this point.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, did you really expect that to happen? Like, name one 3-match series that Hogan has had since he's been in his retirement years. Like, he had 2 matches with The Rock, and those were like 12 months apart. So
yeah.
Anyway, again, technically, is it the worst match? No, but it's one of the matches that annoyed me. So we will move on to Leonard's number 2.
Again, going in chronological order, we're up to The Undertaker versus The Undertaker from 1994. This was a dumb storyline that was played for comedy with all the vignettes of people claiming to have seen The Undertaker. You had a guy that said he sold him a kosher sandwich at a deli, and a little kid
like
on a swing set, and
all that stuff. I forgot about all that stuff, but it's just so ridiculous. Like, what?
And then Leslie Nielsen is playing Frank Drebin from the Naked Gun movies, trying to find The Undertaker. So again, to recap how we got here, at the Royal Rumble that year, Yokozuna beats The Undertaker in a casket match with the help of just about every heel out of the back, and him stealing the urn from Paul Bearer. And as he's getting wheeled out in the casket, a camera comes on. The Undertaker gives some sort of spiel. And then we see what looks like the Taker going up into the rafters, which, fun fact, it was Mario Jannetty dressed as the Undertaker. So a few months later, Ted DiBiase, who originally brought the Undertaker into the WWE, says, I brought the Undertaker back. And he debuts him on the Heartbreak Hotel, which was a short-lived interview segment with Shawn Michaels. And then Paul Bearer comes back and says, that's not the real Undertaker. I have the real Undertaker. And that leads to this match. And the fake Undertaker, also known as the Underfaker or the Overtaker, is primetime Brian Lee. And I was not watching much at this time. I was 15. I was catching things here and there. And I remember seeing something on Raw or Superstars of the Undertaker and being like, oh, okay, it's the Undertaker. DiBiase, he's with him now. Cool. And I think, too, when you just look at Brian Lee by himself back during that time, during kayfabe and all, you could go, oh, okay. But when this match happens and they're in the ring together.
Yeah, I knew you were going to go here. Yeah.
Way taller, way bigger than Brian Lee. You can definitely tell a difference to him when they're face to face in the ring. And this is also.
The air goes out of the crowd.
Yes. Because it's not, and I know think it's maybe Vince that says it's like looking in a mirror. No, it isn't. And I do like this is the start of the purple Undertaker era.
Yeah.
The real Undertaker is purple and black. Lee is gray and black, which is it's like when you and your friend are playing like Mortal Kombat and you take the same character.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. We got to do a palette swap to remember who's who here. This match is under 9 minutes, but it felt a lot longer due to the very methodical and slow pace. It's also pretty lousy because both guys have the gimmick of no selling. Brian Lee gets very little here. Undertaker kicks his ass throughout most of the match, but he's no selling everything, so it doesn't really look it. There was a suplex from the apron I thought was pretty good. I thought Lee's choke slam that he got looked pretty good. An attempt at a hot shot was botched that looked really bad.
Yeah.
The Tombstone Pile Driver reversal was cool because I think that's probably the first time we had seen that. Kane will do that years later. There were multiple tombstones that followed from Taker on Lee, which I thought were overkill. Vince said the crowd was in awe.
Yeah, he constantly had to cover for them. And was this the match that what's his face? Freebird was on commentary with him, or is that the other match that you're going to talk about?
I believe that's the next match I'm talking about. I believe it was Jerry Lawler. I think
Jerry Lawler was on this one then. Yeah.
I believe it was Vince and Lawler.
No, yeah.
The next match I'm going to talk about was Vince and Michael Hayes.
Right. Yeah. So this match to me I watched all the matches that you're going to talk about. This match had awkward chemistry. The crowd was dead, and they were dead, I think, because once they saw this happen face to face, they were like, oh, wait, this is stupid. It's like kind of the wool being picked up from over your eyes. You're finally able to see clearly.
Yeah.
I think they did a whole Seinfeld episode about like once somebody points something out to you, you can't unsee it, and that's kind of like the gist here. Like once you see these two guys side by side, you're like, wait, oh, like this is really dumb, isn't it? And it is. It's just stupid, Not that they were playing it totally seriously, as you said before, with the comedy things, but this was just. It was a bad match, and thankfully, it wasn't longer than it was.
Yeah, in that long-term fantasy bookings that I've talked about, I have Hulk Hogan, and I have a Fed run by Andy Kaufman. Nice. And at one point, I had Andy Kaufman bring in the Underfaker.
That's
to feud with Hogan because he couldn't get the real Undertaker. Someone else had the real Undertaker, so I had him bring in the Underfaker.
I like it.
Yeah.
So my number 2 match again might come as a bit of a surprise. It is from SummerSlam 2018. It is Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. So if you thought to yourself, wait, I don't remember which match this is, then that's my point.
Question: Is this their first?
No.
Okay.
Well, this is not their first match together.
Okay.
So this match, here's the reason it was here on my list. So this match, for starters, it's only like 9 minutes and change long. And this was at the end of a stretch of matches that these two had together. And by this point, like, I was so completely done, not only with this feud, but this was in the Roman Reigns face era, very much during the time period when Vince was shoving him down our throats, whether we liked it or not. And they were going to make Reigns the champ, and you could see what they were doing. You knew they were going for the long game. You knew eventually they were going to put the belt on Reigns, and that's exactly what they did here. Just to recap how we got to this point, at the WrestleMania before this, you had Reigns versus Lesnar, and Lesnar won that match. Then you had the Greatest Royal Rumble. I don't know if anybody remembers anything other than Titus O'Neil from that, but Lesnar and Reigns had a cage match, and Reigns speared Lesnar through the cage.
Yeah.
Technically, they said Lesnar ended up on the floor first, so he won. If you look at the video, it's ridiculous because Reigns rolled to the floor first. Like, it's just so stupid. But anyway, so that was their second match. And then here again at SummerSlam, they have a match, and this is Reigns having the crown put on him yet again. And I hated it. I don't like this feud. I don't think that it's nearly as good as what Vince thought it was. And that's why I hope that we don't see it again, because I think when somebody says, tell me Brock Lesnar's best feuds, they will not mention Roman Reigns. They will not. They'll look at there's a Rivals show on A&E that aired just this past week, and the rivalry they chose to highlight with Brock Lesnar was Kurt Angle.
Yeah, that was the first one I thought when you said that. I would probably say Kurt Angle.
Exactly. And after that one, I might go to John Cena. Or
yeah.
something like that. I wouldn't go to Reigns because I don't think that they have as good a chemistry as they should, because everybody could see what they were trying to do and accomplish with Reigns. And that's what happened here. And it's unfortunate that shortly after this, he would, come into the ring and announce that he had leukemia and all that very sad news. He's back now and all that's great. So this is all around that period. And so that's why I put it here. I like Brock Lesnar's short burst matches. I think generally they can be pretty good when that happens. This one I didn't like, not just because of the feud, but because it was just a match of finishers. Superman punch, spear, F5, suplex, like it's all it was. It was a match of finishers.
So, right. It's like when you're mashing buttons on the WWE arcade game.
Yeah. If you were playing this game at home on your PS5, that's what you would do. You would just do finishers. But when we watch it with real people on TV, you don't necessarily want to see that. So anyway.
Yeah. So again, chronological order, but I think a lot of people would call this unequivocally the worst main event ever in WrestleMania history. Mabel versus Diesel from 1995. This was for the title, Diesel being champ. It's, as I said, most people consider this to be the worst SummerSlam main event ever during one of the worst WWF years, with one of its worst champions versus one of the worst main eventers they ever had. This match is a bit over 9 minutes, but yet again, it feels much longer. I know Kevin Nash has dissed this match, much like Luger versus Yoko. You've got a big fat guy that can't do much and a guy who was never a great worker, trying to do something here. It's boring. It's sloppy. It's nothing but strikes. Diesel feels like he's going in slow motion so Mabel can keep up. And it's not like Diesel was a luchador, Even something that should be impressive, like Diesel does a dive over the top, it looked awkward. It came across as blah. There's a segment where Mabel just sits down on Diesel's back, and it might be the laziest rest spot I've ever seen. Do a surfboard, do a camel clutch. And I do.
Yeah, was he doing anything from that angle? It was hard to tell.
No, I don't think he was. He was just sitting on him and breathing hard. Was all he was doing. Now, I think that if I remember correctly, I believe Nash did say that he suffered a back, injury.
I was going to ask if he got injured, because this is one of the big kind of, problems with Mabel.
I believe this was the match where Mabel did injure Nash. I know that there was an injury he talked about. I believe this was it. I believe it was something with his back. So it could have been them just giving him a minute to recover by not doing anything. I don't know.
Because you could hear mumbling.
Yes, you can hear mumbling.
And so what it came across to me as like Kevin Nash giving Mabel a piece of his mind.
Perhaps.
MF or that hurt or something. Yeah. Like, I don't know, but that's what it seemed like, because then they just sit there.
Yeah. And then when Mabel pulls him up, it's really awkward. The ref bump that happens is poorly done. It's not needed. There's running by Lex Luger, that's not needed. I think they were trying to, and I don't remember this at all, I think they were trying to set up maybe a heel turn for Luger and have him poised as a challenger for Diesel. So much stuff not needed and bad. The finish was very lackluster and anticlimactic. A turnbuckle pad gets removed and Diesel takes it in the back once, but it really didn't play a factor at all. It's just really, again, as I said, it's the worst main event and one of the worst years with two of the worst guys on top.
Yeah, this period from 93 to 95, it's no wonder that this was one of the lowest periods of the company's history. And this match is just very bad. They had horrible chemistry, and neither of these people were very good in the ring. And you see just how much other opponents carried them when you watch them here, because they look clumsy and awkward. And
I don't know if I've ever seen a good Mabel match. Diesel has, yes, had good matches.
Right, because he's worked with good people. And
Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Razor Ramon, etc.
Exactly. And yeah, but the commentary of this match I also thought was bad. To me, Michael Hayes, Doc Hendricks, as he was known here, did not help Vince on commentary. Vince is fine for what he is, but like he has to do a lot of cover up here, and it's just very awkward. It's weird to look back and think that this was a main event, I think. But my number one is a match that Leonard has already talked about, which is Lex Luger versus Yokozuna. And King Mabel versus Diesel is probably worse. But the reason I put this match here is because it literally put me to sleep.
Did you fall asleep? Did you actually fall asleep watching
I did. I did not off. And it was probably during the period where Yokozuna had a nerve hold on Lex Luger. And I was just, it was just, this match was just so boring. And the reason I wouldn't, me personally, label the other two as higher is because those matches are bad, but they're short. Like they're
both under 10 minutes. Yes,
they're mercifully short. The Lex Luger match is like 12 or 13 minutes, and
it's 18. It's almost 18. It's like 17:52 or something.
And it feels like an Iron Man match with Atom Bomb and Diesel, or Atom Bomb and Crush. Like it's so just long and drawn out, and like Lex Luger is like vomiting patriotism here. Like it's just like it's just awful, in so many ways. Lex Luger, to his credit, they wanted him to be a new Hogan. And that is probably one out of many factors why he didn't become the megastar here that they wanted him to be, because you can't have somebody recreate the Hogan character right out of the gate like that. But
considering it was 1993 and the Hogan character was about 10 years out of date at that time,
right? Yeah.
And being super patriotic and them doing the foreign heel, they had just did that a couple years before at WrestleMania 7 with Hogan,
right,
and Slaughter. So I think it was them. This is very much a period from 93 to 95 where they were grasping at straws.
Yes.
And that was a straw they were grasping at. Not only the idea of making Luger the next Hogan, but going the super patriotic route, trying to make Yokozuna a foreign menace.
Right.
Those types of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was looking, one of the other matches I watched, I decided not to put it on because although I didn't like the ending, the match itself was fine, which was, I believe, what is it, from 19, maybe? I forget, 2016? I forget. But it was Randy Orton versus Brock Lesnar.
Okay.
I'm sure you remember that finish, Leonard, where like it's like a technical a knockout finish.
Yeah.
And Orton gets busted open the hard way in that match, and it was just a very they give Orton a lot of offense, and that's what I'm glad I went back to watch it, because I thought that they had given Orton no offense, but they did give him offense. It's just by the end of it, it made him look like nothing.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, you have like a weird you can divvy up the SummerSlam main events. Really, you have the classic era, which kind of ends in 91, like Leonard mentioned earlier. And then you have the 92 to 95 era.
Well, 92 was Bret Hart versus Bulldog, right?
Which is great. Yes, that match is great, for sure. And then you get into the Attitude Era, and after that it becomes a bit of a hodgepodge. But there are sections to the SummerSlam main events, I would say.
One I'll mention because I just recently watched the '89 SummerSlam, which was Hulk Hogan and Bruce Beefcake versus Macho King and Zeus. No, I don't think he was Macho King yet. I think he was just Macho Man. He did have Sherry with him.
Right.
And, a lot of people would think that would be bad, but that was actually better than you would think because Zeus, Tiny Lister, actor, not a wrestler, is very well protected. He's given very little to do. Hogan and Beefcake sell like hell for him, walk him through it. Savage is directing him from his corner. So that is, I think, a great example of taking the worst possible person that you could probably have, slapping him in there with at least 3 veterans. A lot of people wouldn't call Hogan and Beefcake the best in-ring generals, but they know what they're doing for what they do. And I think they were able to work a very passable main event.
Yeah, no, I remember that match being entertaining for what it was.
Yeah.
And it's funny you mentioned about the in-ring generals thing. You have people over the years who are more synonymous with that descriptor, like your Ric Flairs and your Bret Harts and your Shawn Michaels and stuff like that. But recently in the A&E biography on Goldberg, Goldberg talks about that match in the George Dome with Hogan and just how much Hogan led him through the entire match, so for all Hogan's faults, like you said, he knew what he was doing in the ring. And if it was somebody he wanted to protect, then, he did that, I think.
Yeah.
As well as anybody could. Could he lead you to a 5-star classic? No.
but he could walk anyone through, I think, a passable match if you wrestle a Hogan match.
Exactly, right. Well, I think that we've talked about the worst ones. And when I looked, I'm sure you did the same research I did looking at various lists.
Yeah.
And once then I looked at the Wikipedia list, which very conveniently has all the main events listed. And I saw it's like, well, God, it's 93 to 95.
Yeah, that's easy. And again, when I was looking at the list and the fact that they fell in chronological order, I went, I got to go with this. If we're doing just 3, we talked about just doing 3. I was like, I gotta go with that. You got
a lot of lists had Rick Rude and Ultimate Warrior in the cage. And I got to say,
I disagree with that.
Yeah, I disagree with it too, because I thought Rick Rude was the Warrior's best opponent, save for Savage.
Yeah.
And I remember that match being okay for what it was. So,
I'd have to go back and watch that one, but yeah, I do remember that being okay. Yeah.
So let us know what you think. If there's any match you think we missed or we should have talked about, please let us know. Check out some of our other episodes, as well as our Stupid Questions series and our random match reviews. And we are on Apple Podcasts and Spotify if you'd rather listen to us. For Leonard, my name is Chad. We will see you next week, and Alexa will see you out.